Hi, Mike Gonzalez here with Lux Home Sales. Hey, today we are going to be talking about the probate process. So many of you that are watching may be already in the probate process, or you may be preparing for the inevitable. And we've prepared some information in these answers today that should give you some insight whether you're already involved in the probate process or trying to prepare accordingly. So basically, we have a list of the 11 most asked questions about the probate process, and I have them listed over here. So if you see me looking around, I'm just checking to make sure that I don't miss one of the questions. But the first question that we typically get asked is, what is probate? And in its simplest terms, probate is the legal transfer of the assets and the payment of debts from the estate of someone who has just passed away. So that is what probate is in a nutshell. The second question that we get is, how long does the probate process take? And this one is almost impossible to answer because really every situation is so different. It is a legal process. There are forms and filings and wait periods involved. So it is typically a fairly lengthy process, but the more less involved probate cases can be closed in a matter of 2 to 6 months. The more involved the process, the longer it is going to take. Things that can affect the timeline are going to be things such as property taxes, if there were business interests, income taxes that may have not been paid that need to be sorted, if there's real estate involved. So all of these things will contribute, but typically probate is going to take 6 to 12 months. I have seen them go as long as 2 years. They can be done quicker, but typically it's going to depend on a case-by-case basis. Third question that we get asked a lot is probate difficult? So I'm going to say no, probate is not difficult. It is a process. There's forms that need to be completed, filings that need to be made, wait periods. So it's really going to be more time consuming than difficult. Question number 4 is, should I try to avoid probate? And I would say that if your estate needs to go through the probate process, it needs to go through the probate process. If it's not been handled in advance, obviously you can't just decide to sidestep it. It is a legal process. But if you've prepared in advance, then yes, you can avoid the probate process. And we're going to get into a couple of ways to do that here in the next question, I believe, which is, yes, how can I avoid the probate process? So really, if you're planning in advance, and this is very important, a revocable living trust is really the best way to avoid the probate process. If you have that properly created and properly filed in advance, then no, you would not have to go through the probate process. A couple of other ways to avoid the probate process would be for estates that are insolvent. Those typically do not have to go through the probate process. There are a couple of other issues at play, and one of them involves real estate. So you want to make sure if you have a spouse, a co-owner on the property, that you have the deed deeded correctly, which would be joint tenants with the rights of survivorship or tenancy by the entireties. You want to make sure that you have that in place, as well as maybe a community property agreement that would help keep that from going through the probate process. Question number 6 that we get asked is, are there any assets that are not subject to probate? And yes, there's actually quite a few of these. So Joint bank accounts are not subject to probate. Insurance policies are not subject to probate. If you have certain brokerage accounts, some may be subject to probate. If you have a brokerage account that has a payable on death notice, then that would not be subject to probate. So yes, there are certain assets that are not subject to the probate process. The next question is, will estate tax, will we be liable for estate taxes? So this one's going to depend a little bit on the estate, obviously. So there's a federal estate tax that applies on estates with a value greater than, at the time of this video, which is 12.06 million. So there will be an estate tax for any estate over that amount at the federal level, and your state tax is going to be predicated on the rules and laws in your state. I am in Florida. There is no estate state tax in the state of Florida, but definitely check with the attorney that you're working with to find out if there is one in your state and how much it is. The next question is there an inheritance tax? So there currently is no federal inheritance tax. However, there are many states that do have an inheritance tax. Here in Florida, there is no inheritance tax, but definitely if you're outside of Florida, check with your attorney again and find out if your state has one and how much it is. Question number 9 that we get asked a lot is, what happens if someone dies without a will? All right, so obviously there's two things, right? Either you have a will or you don't. So people who die with a will in place are said to have died testate. And people who die without a will in place are said to have died intestate. So if there's a will in place, it basically still goes through the probate process, but it also directs the estate administrator on how to distribute the assets of the estate. If there is no will, it's basically going to be up to the probate system to determine who gets what. So definitely, if you're planning in advance, I mean, wills they make the process so much easier for everyone. So if you're in that position and able to get that done in advance, I would say definitely get a will in place at the very least, and a revocable living trust would be, another step to that, and provide even greater protection and alleviate the need for probate with the trust. Question number 10, do family members have to pay the deceased person's debt personally? All right, so the short answer to this is no. The heirs and family members do not have to pay the debts of the person who has just passed away. However, there's a caveat to that, which is if a family member has co-signed on a particular loan that has not yet been paid off, then yes, that person would be personally liable for that loan at this time because they were a co-signer on that loan. So unless you've co-signed on a loan, then no, you are not going to be personally responsible for that debt. So one other thing to mention on here, and that is if there's real estate involved and the deceased person has not kept up with the mortgage payments, the house is still subject to foreclosure if there's a note. So you do want to look into that very early on and make sure that if it hasn't been paid, that you get that caught up and paid so that the heirs still have the house in the family. You don't want to lose the house to foreclosure. That would be worst case scenario. So you definitely do want to get those payments caught up and current so that when it comes time, you can transfer that property into the name of whoever that asset was distributed to, and they don't lose it to foreclosure. Question number 11, the last question that we have in this series. What happens if the decedent has willed the house to an heir, but the estate has legitimate debts that exceed the available funds of the estate? All right, so this one handled a little bit differently in Florida, potentially from other states. In Florida, if there is real estate in the estate, we typically will file a homestead exemption, which will remove it from the probate process and keep it out from any legitimate claims. So I guess the best way to explain that is you create a filing, homestead exemption, removes the real property from the probate process, therefore it can't be touched by legal, legitimate creditors. All right, I hope that this information has been helpful to you. Again, my name is Mike Gonzalez. I'm with Lux Home Sales, New Smyrna Beach, Florida. If you have additional questions, please call me, 404-569-8048. I'd love to answer any questions that you have. If you would like to email me, you can reach me at mike@luxhomesales.net, or you can just go check us out online. We've got some resources on there for you. You can also request additional resources. We have a probate guidebook that even goes into more detail than this video. And our website is Luxe, L-U-X-E, homesales.net. Again, thanks so much for tuning in. I'd love to hear from you. Any questions, comments that you have for me, and we will see you in the next series. Thank you again. Thank you for tuning into my video. A couple of housekeeping items I wanted to make sure that we're aware of. First of all, I am a real estate agent. I am not an attorney, so please make sure that any legal related questions you have, that you definitely direct those to your attorney. The information that I provide is strictly informational to help you move in the right direction, maybe answer some basic questions that you have, but please definitely check with your attorney for anything legal related. Also, if you have real estate needs, I am here for you. I am in New Smyrna Beach, Florida, Volusia County, and I work with a lot of out-of-state personal representatives. Because I'm a boots-on-the-ground type agent, I can limit the amount of trips you need to make to the area by checking the house to make sure that it's secure. I can coordinate with third-party contractors for you for cleaning, hauling, landscaping. I can coordinate estate sales. If you're thinking about renting the house or keeping the house or potentially selling the house, I can help provide some valuation on the property for you so that you have some information related to comparable homes that have sold in the area, potentially what might be needed to get the home ready to be sold. So I'm going to pop my information up on the screen so that you have it. And again, if you have questions, please definitely reach out to me. I'm happy to help. I also have a network of agents across the country that I work with that I can refer you to if you are outside, or if the estate that you're managing is outside of, my particular area here in Volusia County, Florida. So definitely reach out to me. I'm happy to help. I have a wealth of information and knowledge for you, and I hope to hear from you soon. Thank you again.